Welcome back to Love and Tears. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world. It helps us bring more stories of love, fate, and second chances to light. Now, before I begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Which city? Which corner of the world is sitting with me? Right now, listening to a memory that has stayed with me for years. Let me know in the comments, because somehow knowing you're here makes sharing this part of my life a little easier. I never thought I'd be telling this story. Honestly, I never imagined it would matter. But life has a strange way of weaving moments together, of turning an ordinary afternoon into something unforgettable. That day taught me something about people, about kindness, and about how the smallest accident can change the rhythm of your life forever. It began quietly, almost too quietly. The kind of day where time drags and the silence feels heavy. I moved around the house doing little things, dusting shelves, rearranging curtains, opening windows to let in a trace of fresh air. The sound of leaves trembling outside, the distant hum of a lawnmower. It was peaceful, but empty. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I welcomed the stillness. But you know what they say? Life loves to surprise us when we least expect it, and that's when it happened. I leaned too far out of one of those narrow windows in my living room. You know, the kind they don't open fully, just enough to let in a little air. I was fiddling with the screen, tugging harder than I should have. In one careless moment, I leaned too far. My shoulders, my blouse, the sharp edge of the frame, it trapped me. I froze. At first, I laughed. Honestly, it felt ridiculous, like something you'd see in a comedy movie. But the longer I stayed stuck, the less funny it became. My arms ached, my phone was just out of reach, and the silence of the house pressed in on me. My chest fluttered with unease, and then I saw him. Across the street, trimming his hedges, was Daniel, my neighbor. We'd exchanged polite greetings over the years, nothing more. He was quiet, silver-haired, somewhere in his late 50s, with the kind of posture that spoke of a lifetime of hard work. That day, he looked so ordinary, so distant. Yet he was about to step into my life in a way I'll never forget. I swallowed my pride, called out his name, lifted my arm awkwardly. Daniel, over here. My voice cracked with more urgency than I wanted to admit. He straightened, squinting in my direction. At first, he looked confused, and then he saw me, half hanging out of the window like some trapped fool. His eyes widened. He dropped his shears and hurried across the street. What on earth happened? His voice carried a mix of concern and disbelief, like he wasn't sure if he should laugh or panic. Don't ask, I muttered, cheeks burning. I was fixing the screen, and now I can't move. He chuckled, not unkindly. All right, don't worry. Let's get you out of there. What followed was a ridiculous dance of pushes and pulls, me pressing from inside him, tugging from outside. My blouse snagged twice. The frame groaned under the struggle, and in the middle of all that, we laughed. Real, unguarded laughter that made me forget for a moment the absurdity of my situation. Finally, with one determined push and a steady pull, I tumbled backward into the living room. My hair was wild, my blouse wrinkled, but I was free. I leaned against the wall, catching my breath. On the porch, Daniel stood smiling warmly. Well, he teased that's one way to get my attention. I laughed, shaking my head. I suppose I owe you more than just a thank you. And that's when he surprised me. He didn't brush it off or say it was nothing. Instead, he looked at me with calm kindness and said, "How about some tea at my place to settle your nerves after that?" I hesitated. I wasn't used to stepping into other people's homes, into their lives. My world had been so small, my house, my routines, my silence. But there was something in his eyes, something steady, something genuine. And maybe, though I wouldn't admit it then, I was craving connection more than I realized. So I said yes. And that was the beginning of something I never saw coming. I followed Daniel across the street, the late afternoon sun stretching long golden shadows across the pavement. Each step felt heavier than it should not, because of fear, but because I hadn't done something like this in a very long time. My world had been safe, small, wrapped in routines I rarely broke. And here I was walking into something new, something unknown. His home greeted me with warmth. The faint scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air, mixed with a hint of polished wood. Photographs lined the walls, faces I didn't know yet. They smiled back at me with a quiet welcome. The space didn't feel grand, but it felt alive. He boiled water, his movements steady, almost ritualistic. At first, our words stumbled, polite, uncertain. Two neighbors trying to find common ground. But slowly, conversation began to flow. We talked about small things, the street, the weather, little annoyances of daily life. His voice carried a calm steadiness, and I found myself listening. Really listening. And maybe that's what struck me most. It wasn't just tea. It was presence, attentiveness. The kind of listening where every word seemed to matter. Tell me honestly, when was the last time someone truly listened to you? Someone who didn't interrupt, didn't judge, but simply made space for your voice. If you know that feeling, share it with me in the comments. Because sitting in Daniel's kitchen that day reminded me how rare, how precious it is. As daylight softened into dusk, I felt something inside me shift. I had come into his house, embarrassed, flustered, still shaken by the window fiasco. But I was leaving lighter. Not because I escaped a silly accident, but because I had stepped outside the walls I had built around myself. And on the other side, waiting quietly, was connection. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. The memory played over and over, not of being stuck in the window, but of sitting across from Daniel at his table. The way his eyes softened when I spoke. The way silence between us didn't feel heavy, but safe. I hadn't felt that kind of ease in years. The next morning, the world looked the same. Neatly trimmed lawns, quiet mailboxes, the occasional car rolling by. But inside me, something was different. Like a faint song that lingers in the background long after the music has stopped. I wondered, was he thinking of it too? Or was it only me caught in this unexpected shift? I tried to focus on chores, laundry, gardening, wiping down countertops. But every little thing reminded me of him. The way his smile carved gentle lines into his face. The rasp in his voice when he laughed. The kindness that radiated without effort. Around noon, I stepped onto my porch to water the flowers. The air carried the sweet scent of freshly cut grass. And there he was. Across the street, Daniel sat on his front steps, a cup of coffee in hand. The moment he spotted me, he raised his hand. "Morning," he called out, his voice warm, steady. I smiled a little shy and replied, "Morning." Then after a pause, he asked Care for some company. I surprised myself when I nodded. Moments later, he crossed the street with that deliberate pace of his. Soon he was standing at my porch railing, leaning casually as I sprinkled water over the flowers. We didn't say much at first, and yet the silence wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, like the hush between two old friends who didn't need to fill every moment with words. Eventually, he broke the quiet. "So, did you manage to fix that window?" I laughed. "Not even close." "I think it'll just stay that way forever, my little reminder." He chuckled softly. "Well, if you'd like, I can take a look later." I fought my share of stubborn windows. There was no judgment in his tone, no trace of condescension, only kindness. And I realized in that moment how rare that was, help offered without making you feel small. We ended up talking longer than I expected. About books, about travels from our younger years, about how the neighborhood had slowly changed. His eyes lit up when he spoke about his garden. His voice carried a quiet pride when he mentioned his grandchildren. And in those details, I no longer saw just a neighbor. I saw a person, a story, a history, a heart. When he finally returned to his own house, the sun was high, the air buzzing with afternoon stillness. Yet I stood on my porch a moment longer, reluctant to let the moment fade. Something about him lingered soft, but undeniable. That evening, as I prepared dinner, I caught myself setting an extra place at the table. I froze, stared at the plate, then laughed at myself. What was I doing? He was just a neighbor, wasn't he? But deep down, it didn't feel strange. It felt natural, almost comforting. And slowly, without warning, a pattern began. Daniel stepped in softly, his every move taboo, yet also full of urgency. The air in the room suddenly became heavy, as if the whole universe had stopped to watch us. He whispered my name, his voice hoarse, and making my whole body tremble. I wanted to say something to keep my distance, but my lips did not listen to reason. In the dim light, his eyes seemed to lock onto me, pulling me away from all barriers, all principles. And then the moment came. Daniel's breath was close, hot, bold, full of desire. I knew I was crossing a line that should not be crossed. But in that moment, my heart betrayed my reason. We were drawn together like two flames, finding each other in the dark. Everything became chaotic. Rapid breathing, searching hands, lost whispers. The world outside disappeared, leaving only us and a secret that no one could know. But when Daniel's eyes swept over me, I shivered. It was not just passion, but also a hidden danger. I wondered, was he also afraid like me? And I want to ask you, if you were in this situation, would you listen to reason to stop or let yourself go with your emotions, regardless of everything? Share your thoughts in the comments section. I believe many hearts will waver, like mine did. That night passed like a long dream. When the light of dawn crept through the curtains, I was startled to realize the truth Daniel was still lying next to me. His warmth still lingered, the familiar scent lingering around, making my heart tremble with fear and longing. I sat up gently, my hands holding my head, thousands of questions rushing through my mind. What had I just done? I had betrayed, crossed a line that should never have been allowed. But at the same time, another voice rang out from deep within. Last night was the first time I felt truly alive. Daniel opened his eyes. His gaze made all the reproaches in me die down. He didn't say much, just reached out to lightly touch my shoulder. That touch was enough for me to understand that he was also struggling. He also knew this was a sin, but he couldn't take it back. I turned away, but my heart skipped a beat. The whole room seemed to still be haunted by the lingering echoes of the long night. I knew from that moment we were tied together in a secret that could not be revealed to anyone. And the question that haunted me the most, can we continue to hide this forever? Or will the truth be revealed, sweeping away everything I have? If you were me, would you bury this secret forever? Or would you confess to free yourself, your heart? Leave your thoughts in the comments section, because each choice has its own price. In the days that followed, everything seemed different. I tried to live normally, laugh, and talk work as if nothing had happened. But inside me, a smoldering fire burned both sweet and dangerous. Daniel was different. He still appeared, still found a way to get close to me. A passing glance, a short message was enough to make my heart beat faster. But every time I looked in the mirror, I saw an indelible torment in my eyes. Then one afternoon when I was cleaning up, my husband, Robert, suddenly asked, "Are you hiding something from me?" The question was simple, but my heart was shaken. I forced a smile, tried to avoid it, but Robert's eyes seemed to pierce deep, making me suffocate. Did he not know anything? Or did he suspect? From that day on, everything became more tense. I was startled by every question, every look. The feeling of guilt weighed heavily on me like a shadow that always followed me, unable to shake it off. As for Daniel, he became more and more daring. Sometimes he called me even when Robert was at home. I was scared, but he just smiled, his voice warm and whispering, "You can't hide forever. We were born to find each other." Those words were sweet, but also dangerous. I knew with just one wrong step, my whole world would collapse. And I want to ask you, if it were you, what would you do? Continue to hide, to live a double life with love and betrayal, or cut it off? Accept the pain to keep the family. I know no secret lasts forever. And that fateful night finally came. That day, Robert came home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen, and Daniel, he had boldly come to see me. My heart was pounding. Each step in the hallway was like a drumbeat signaling disaster. The door swung open. Robert stood there, his eyes full of surprise, then quickly turned cold, making my blood freeze. Daniel and I were only a few steps apart, but that distance was enough to say it all. What is he doing here? Robert's voice was hoarse, as if he had suppressed his anger. I stammered, searching for a reason, but The words got stuck in my throat. Daniel was calmer, his eyes determined, as if he had prepared for this moment. The atmosphere was so tense that I could barely breathe. The three of us stood there in a small room, but filled with truth betrayal and forbidden love. Robert clenched his fists, and I trembled, afraid that everything was over. But Daniel, in a low voice, said a sentence that made me speechless. If you can't make her happy, then let me do it. Those words were like a knife cutting through the air. I looked at Robert, seeing in his eyes the pain, the anger, and the despair. My heart was broken because even though I loved Daniel, I never wanted to destroy the man who had been with me for so many years. At that moment, I knew there was no way back. And now I want to ask you, if you were me, what would you choose? The burning but sinful love for Daniel, or the safety and stability with Robert, the man who trusted and loved you? The room was silent. I stood between two men. One was Robert, the man who had given me a home for so many years. The other was Daniel, the fire that had ignited my heart after so many months of coldness. All excuses were meaningless. I could feel every beat of my heart heavy as if it was about to tear my chest apart. Robert turned away his eyes, filled with a pain I had never seen before. Daniel was still standing there, his gaze passionate, as if inviting me to come closer. I knew that if I chose, my life would take a completely different path. But my feet felt like they were nailed to the floor, unable to walk, unable to speak. Would I have the courage to leave everything behind, regardless of judgment, to pursue a forbidden love? Or would I suppress my emotions, bury my own desires to keep my family? That night, I did not give an answer. And perhaps deep in my heart, I am still searching. What about you? If you were me, who would you choose? Daniel, who revives your long-dead desires? Or Robert, who gives you peace, but no longer makes your heart flutter? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Because who knows, your answer might enlighten those who are lost in love and choice. Thank you for accompanying Love and Tears. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss other heart-wrenching love stories. We will bring you many more emotional journeys that you can't take your eyes off.